Welcome to Heartache City. Population, you. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Haskin, on this tour that I will guide you on through Heartache City. You know, when I moved to California, I saw a sign for a place called Seafood City, and I thought, man, what a place that would be to live. Turns out it was just a grocery store that mainly sold seafood. But anyway, this is a really interesting song. We get to find out where those sounds came from on our last episode, School's Burning, and now they kind of tie into this. So on the original album, it must have been these two songs kind of merged together. Of course, when you get the CD, everything has to have a split somewhere. There has to be a start to the file ID of each and every song. And kind of like the other ones we've covered, like, you know, Paradise the Spell, it has to have a break in there somewhere in the digital world. Otherwise, it is just one long track. And if you wanted to start with the spell for some reason, you would have to fast forward through Paradise, or heaven forbid, just listen to it because it's a really enjoyable song. But in any case, there's a file ID split here, and we've got these planes that are still passing by. They sound a little bit flangy. I'm still not sure exactly what the point of them is, but they do have a nice sound to them. They're a little above the mix. You kind of feel like they're above your airspace. And I think that's kind of cool, actually. So let's just get right into it. You know, and this is a town, I'm going to tell you, Heartache City, I feel like I've owned some real estate there. At least a few plots of land over the course of my life. Hopefully I've sold them all off. I don't have any retaining properties I don't know about there. I would rather not. Not a good place to invest in. But the song, however, is well worth investing in. And we're going to do that right now. Here is Heartache City by Uriah Heep. You know what I'm picturing? And well, of course you don't, but you will. If you've ever seen video of like NASA when they're preparing their astronauts, and you can see they're sitting in some kind of contraption, and it just spins them around and around, so they're moving sideways in a circle, and it keeps going faster and faster. I kind of am picturing that with this sound. It feels like it's not really a plane or an aircraft passing by. It feels more like something that is turning or swirling around us a little bit. I'm not exactly sure, but I love the blend from the last song, School's Burning, into this one, Heartache City. Just the way that it kind of morphs and feels more like it's just rushing at you and going away than it actually feels like it's passing by. It's a really neat sound. But the song itself is pretty cool. It's got an edge to it right off the bat. You could tell it's going to be a heavy song. I love the long fade in of it. The interesting thing about a long fade in is it takes you a while to realize that the song has stopped fading in. Like it reached its plateau a long time ago, but a lot of times you just feel like it's still getting louder, even though it's not. It's a great audio illusion. I love it. Well, I like the sound of it for sure. It's got a great mix of all the instruments. You are hearing a little more keyboards than we've heard recently. Those are kind of coming through a little bit on a couple of different layers. I'm hearing at least two different keyboards. The guitars are great. They're playing some really interesting chords at a specific point in each line that I find fascinating. It's almost like, what is that song by Duran Duran? Is it Rio? Where it's like da 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 da. I want to say it's the verse of Rio, but in any case, that's kind of what's going on here. Like you've got that late coming in chord that just really powerful and cuts through a little bit, and they're different frequencies, so that makes it a little bit interesting. But it sounds good. Again, vocals are slightly buried, but they're still audible, which I like. It's just got a good sound to it. It's got a good tempo too. I really like where they're at with the tempo. Yeah, there's just so much going on here. There's so many layers, and it just sounds so good. The guitars are really pristine on this song. The keyboards are cutting through nicely, not overbearing, not really pushing themselves too high in the mix, but you can definitely hear and feel them. Drums are solid. Bass is doing all kinds of stuff, but you can't really hear it that well, or at least I can't on these headphones. But there's a lot going on bass-wise. It's just a little bit buried in the mix, which is unfortunate because I think there's some good playing going on there. But overall, yeah, it's a really cool song so far. And, we're about to hit an abrupt change. Yeah, it was an abrupt change, but, I really like the chances that they're taking in this section. They're really going to interesting places in pitch. The way that they progress up in pitch, the particular pitches that they choose are all very interesting. I love the way that the backing vocals are just solid through all of that. Very cool. But it's interesting because it really keeps the integrity of the song from the beginning through this part, even with the change. But yet it really is kind of its own part and really takes off in a different direction. So I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, if you guys can pick out what the bass is doing, follow it for a few seconds. It's really cool. It's just hard to hear it in the mix. And of course, Peter Goalby, another fantastic performance. He's so consistent as a singer. I haven't seen him live, but as a studio singer, he's so consistent the way that he's just constantly pushing that power. He's always got that same level of energy. Unless he specifically shouldn't have it, he's got it. He's always there. Somebody who just is a musician, I would feel very comfortable being in a band with somebody who's that consistent. It could be my imagination because that is a thing. But it seems to me like Lee Kerslake is laying back a little bit more on this album. And I'd have to go back and listen to the songs because, I'm just doing the episodes one after another. So sometimes, you forget which album something was on. But it seems to me like the last few songs, at least, like he's playing very solid, don't get me wrong. But he's not that more aggressive, lots of drum fills, bigger transitions kind of stuff on this album. Now, again, a lot of that is changing by the sign of the times, right? I look at, again, a Deep Purple comparison. When they came out with Perfect Strangers, the drumming was very straightforward. And I remember Ian Pace being interviewed and somebody had asked him about that. And he said, well, music just doesn't work that way. You can't be playing like that right now. And that's a good point. You know, a lot of the structure of a song has to do with the way music is accepted in a certain time period, a certain year, maybe some shift that's happened recently. But the 80s were a different time, and drumming especially could be very straightforward. So I just find it interesting. It really seems like he's laying back a little bit more than we're used to. He's playing great, you know, making solid beats and, you know, hitting cymbals where they need to be hit, that sort of thing. But I'm not hearing those drum rolls that we're used to hearing, like I said, especially on the transitions. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure since we started this album, the majority of it has been that way. So if that's not the case, I apologize. Like I said, you know, sometimes they blend into each other on which album they were on, and that's very possible. But I would say, at least certainly on this song and some of the more recent songs, he's definitely restrained, I would say. Well, that has to be a bit of a challenge, doesn't it? Because the solo starts right as the music changes into a whole new direction that we haven't heard in the song before. And that's got to be strange because you're building up a different momentum to get into that part. You're playing a little faster, a little more aggressive, and then all of a sudden the song just dials back right where the solo starts. That's kind of weird as a listener. That had to be hard as a guitarist too, because you're not building into that place you're going to start your solo. Everything just changes and you just have to be right there. So I would have to say that was probably tough. It might not have been for Mick, I don't know, but it seems like that would have been tough. But it's a cool solo. It's a really patient solo. It works well with the song. I like the way that it works with that section of the song. He didn't play it too over the top. It was very patient, very elegant, I thought. But now we're in this part where what sounds like a synthesizer, I don't think it's the guitar, I think it's the synthesizer, is just coming in just a little bit hot, you know. At that frequency, it's a little uncomfortable to my ear, but that's just me. Well, that's kind of the reverse, isn't it? Before we were playing a little faster, going into a slow part with a sudden solo. Now we're playing a slightly slower part, and then it just goes faster into a solo. Really interesting, though, but it was great playing. I like that. I like the way that they brought it back into the vocal part again. I thought that was a really nice, smooth transition. And I was actually expecting something kind of abrupt again, because we've had a couple abrupt changes here already, but that was actually smooth going back into the verse. Yeah, nice fade out. Not too long. Didn't start too early or drop too fast. That was actually very smooth. Really fit the song. But I love that. I love that chorus. I love the way that he just goes up in pitch. With City of Heartache. That's really cool. That adds that. That's like the hook of it for me. That's the part I want to hear again. And the playing's good. It's nice and solid. Nothing too fancy behind that. Really just letting the vocals shine, but being very supportive. Great song. That's a really great song. And it's just one of those things where that at some point that's going to pop back into your head. That chorus will just in the middle of the night, while you're driving down the road, whatever it is, somewhere that chorus is going to pop back in your head. And that's the sign of some really good writing and performing, because if it wasn't hooky, if it didn't have some reason for your brain to recall it, it wouldn't. At least it wouldn't be likely to. But I suspect that at least for most people listening to this, that will at some point just pop up randomly in your life again. And maybe soon. That has happened a lot with My Joanna Needs Tuning. That song will just pop right in my head, and it's the vocal. The music is great, but there's just something in that vocal, in the pitching, that just makes it pop right back into my head. And it's been happening ever since I've done the show. There's got to be some kind of medication I could take for that. I don't know if there's anything specific to the song, but it's been wild. And it'll wake me up in the middle of the night too. It's the weirdest thing. That's never happened to me with a song. I'll get parts stuck in my head or songs stuck in my head, but there's just something really unique about the way this one's been doing it. And I don't think I've ever had a song wake me up even once in the middle of the night, let alone multiple times, just because my brain wanted to hear it. Weirdest thing ever. But in any case, this episode was about Heartache City. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it's a great song. I think it fits in very well with this album, very well with the time frame that we're talking about, that this came out, and just the kind of music that was going on around there. I do find that comparison to Duran Duran, to that part of the verse, to be pretty on board. I'm pretty sure the song was Rio. I'll have to look, but thinking about it in my head, I want to say Rio was the right song for that. If not, let me know. I'd love to know which one it was, because a lot of those songs from Duran Duran, they sounded very similar to me, just by the nature of the band's sound at the time. They were all good. I liked them, but there was a lot of similarities from one song to another, except for like Hungry Like the Wolf and Planet Earth. Those songs really stuck out to me. A couple of my favorites by them. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me on another episode of the show. We'll see you again on the next one. Take care, guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!